So yeah, my name is Meinhard, and you can guess what company I work for. Maybe. Okay, so I want to talk about blockchain production. And actually, I didn't expect a room full of blockchain professionals, so excuse my sort of outside perspective on some things. If things are boring, just shout boring, and then I will just skip to the next slide. Oh, wait, how do I use this? Where's the green button? Thank you. Yes, just to kind of to get an idea here. So who could, in one sentence, explain what the difference between proof of stake and proof of work is? Just kind of a hand up, so I know how confident people feel about that kind of thing. Okay, that's cool. So I'll just go ahead then. Cool, so blockchain production. First about me a little bit. I'm an internet programmer, whatever that means, since 1994. So I've seen a lot of stuff coming and going. And I'm in the Bitcoin space since there, so that was cool. Kind of flatlining. So that was the first crash I saw. Maybe you see the little crash here. It's like massive. It was like going down to $10 or something. So I was like, what? What's that? $2 afterwards. Yeah, first from 30 to anyway. So yeah, I'm in the space for quite a long time. So none of this worries me at all. Neither should you, but you know that probably. Right, so at SatoshiPay I started about 4 years ago. Yeah, I can tell about the company a little bit more later. Generally, we were first working on Bitcoin or with Bitcoin technology, then we kind of changed to other ledgers and experimented with other ledgers, and we kind of grew with the ecosystem a little bit. And so I want to talk about blockchains. And in kind of non-blockchain professional circles, I always stress the S, the plural here, meaning there is not just one blockchain tech, there's so many, and they are kind of just sharing the same name, but often they are very, very different from each other. You all know that. And we have, of course, as you know, 900 blockchains, and probably even more tokens now, and by the day, they increase massively. And we are looking at a Cambrian explosion here. So this is kind of an evolutionary moment where everything kind of explodes, and there will be sort of branches that get stronger, some other branches that kind of die out. So it's really a very exciting moment to be in this industry, obviously. To the mainstream, we have exactly 0. So none of the coins, and that's kind of a bold claim, I know, have made it to a 0 to a mainstream adoption, being used in consumer products or like I don't know, more than like 5 million people or something. Because yeah, we have like only, according to this study, 3 to 4 million regular users of blockchain tech or of crypto assets and so on and so forth. And so that's really still at the very beginning. And so what's Bitcoin's killer app so far? Or not Bitcoin, blockchain's killer app so far? A lot of speculation on that. I would just say and go for this one, so speculation. So that's the killer app, yeah. Let's call it diversification, so it sounds a bit better. What up? Sorry? Some heckler? Do I have hecklers in the room? So diversification, let's call it. So just like playing around with assets, that's the killer use case, and that's very successful. And it's very good at that. Blockchain does that very, very well. So it is the killer use case for me. And of course, resulting from that initial coin offerings, you may have heard of them. Maybe I think 99% of the people in the room are doing one at the moment. So you're very familiar with this as well. And here we are essentially looking at peer-to-peer venture capital, which is disrupting the venture capital industry and so on and so forth. But also traditional venture capitalists, of course, are looking into the ICO space quite heavily. And essentially, the property that's used in most of these ICO applications is the programmable money use case. So yeah, you can add a few extra parameters to how the money or the funds are being moved around, but that's kind of the primary use case of that. So that is, in essence, the killer app. And it's powering a quite sizable industry, and the 300 billion number is kind of a rough or like a careful estimate. It's quite powerful, and it's growing, and it's kind of making the ecosystem grow from within. So there was always the idea, okay, there will be one big mainstream adoption looking at blockchain, and then it will become huge. But now actually it's growing, and it's kind of eating up everything in its vicinity. It's kind of growing and growing, and it's doing that slowly, and that's kind of happening every single day. So I don't really believe in this idea of like, this one big bang and then we're suddenly in the mainstream. It's very gradual. So let's talk about scalability a little bit. And here, I think the #1 metric we are looking at is usually network transactions. How many transactions per second or over a certain time frame can be done, and how big can they be, and so on and so forth. And how long does it take to actually finalize a transaction? So I'm kind of comparing a few, of course, of the usual suspects. So we have Bitcoin with transactions per second, about 4, and then we have Ethereum a few more, then Ripple a few more, and I'm happy to be corrected on this number. I was already behind the stage when there was a very similar slide just shown before this. So this is the number I found. And then we have Stellar with a few more, and also they're working on sort of a Lightning network on Stellar, which kind of increases that as well. Then the cost per transactions, I think we are around 90 cents at the moment on average that's being spent. This may have changed a little bit in the last few weeks. These slides are, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks old. And Ethereum, we have like 25 cents, then we have half a cent for Ripple, according to my research, and then we have a fraction of a cent for Stellar, so very, very small transaction costs there. And then we have time until a transaction gets confirmed finally on the ledger. Bitcoin, roughly an hour if you give enough confirmations. Ethereum, similar thing, about 3 minutes if you give them enough confirmation. The first confirmations come in earlier, but the final confirmation on these systems take a bit of time. Then we have Ripple with about 4 seconds, and Stellar is publishing a new ledger every roughly 5 seconds at the moment. So the first two have, of course, this in common. They are proof-of-work coins, which are all which are still being mined at the moment, with some slight adjustments and slight explorations into kind of mixed models. But essentially, the other two are proof-of-stake, and that's also something we saw on the talk before, which is to the most extent pre-mined, and that's sort of making things much more efficient because the mining process isn't there. You have, in terms of censorship resistance, a few compromises to make, but the increased efficiency is really the thing that we looked at in ledgers, and you can guess which one we took and which one we chose to kind of work with. Simply because they were very, very open. We also contacted Ripple, actually, and there was not really a reply, I believe, to our emails. Ripple and then Stellar, they were very open. They also have this kind of build competition where you can apply for grants and so on. They seemed to us more friendly to the sort of small and tiny business ecosystem and like individual developers. And also soon we talked about a bit of a grant from them as well. So they kind of give us free credit for our users. And that also helped us to kind of work with them because it really finances some of our infrastructure costs. So that's sort of the overview in transaction fees and the kind of performance and scalability. And let's talk about some other things that are out there, which you are all aware of course, which are fiat tokens. They're essentially blockchain versions of euro, dollar, pound, yuan, and so on and so forth. And we have a specific one that I want to kind of highlight here, which is the euro token on Stellar. It's issued by the Tempo Bank, and the Tempo Bank is a regulated entity. It's fully audited by the French regulator, I believe, every 2 weeks. They have an audit and they have a full reserve. Not many euro tokens are in existence, but we chose this one to work with because it's fully regulated and audited, and we also know Tempo quite well at this stage. And they have a direct SEPA gateway, or we can sort of send a transaction to one address with a certain memo field or a certain kind of memo information or meta information attached to it, and then it will go automatically to a SEPA bank account, and that's really kind of a direct link, and within seconds, essentially, we can initiate using just blockchain tech SEPA transactions, so bank transfers. That's quite sexy for us. And oops. Okay. So these euro tokens, they have all the advantages of blockchain and not really the disadvantages. So there's no volatility, obviously, because you have, I mean, there is volatility, the normal fiat volatility, but as you know, that's much less than we have in some blockchain tokens, which go up and down 30% in one day. So that's really kind of what our clients want. So our clients are publishers, and they don't care about any blockchain assets and volatility. They are actually quite annoyed by it, and they just want to have a sizable or like a calculatable or predictable income, and that's why they are not interested in volatility. And this feedback we got time and time over again. That's why we are soon changing to Euro token, and that we just push around Euro tokens to at least have just one fiat token in the system, and not that's not volatile compared to crypto tokens. Yeah, so of course the blockchain currencies are still used for fees or gas to sort of make small transactions, but they're so small that they play a very, very small role in our system in the future for going forward. So IBM and central banks are working on official fiat tokens. So there's a lot of rumors about this, and we don't know when they're coming out with this. But they are actually supplying banking technology to these central banks. And I think that's going to be quite an exciting, although also a bit scary use case. But sort of it gives a nod to blockchain as a whole. While you still have the option to use your sort of anonymous tokens if you want that are not regulated. But the blockchain tech is also moving towards, of course, the banking world quite heavily. So let's talk about SatoshiPay a little bit. Yeah, we are working on something that we call pocket change for the web. And why do we do this? So on the web, you have content plus advertising that kind of makes the web in most cases, or the monetization model of the web. And there's a tiny little problem here. Users don't really like ads. So that's kind of a disconnect between the users and the suppliers of content. So what do the users do? They install ad blockers. Not sure how many people here have an ad blocker. Probably quite a few. Yeah, so I'm also an avid ad blocking user. That's kind of why I built this, because I thought, okay, yes, they need income, but I don't want to see ads. I don't like ads. They annoy me and slow down my phone and whatever, and like drain my data plan. So in some markets, we have more than half of the users that already are ad blocking, even on mobile, and don't see ads. So of course, this causes a huge problem for publishers that are dependent on ads. And yeah, so what they do is they put up paywalls, so-called paywalls, and ask you to subscribe every month and have very long kind of follow-up costs. And for these 4 US American newspapers, you're expected to pay around 80 euros a month. And you might do this for 1 newspaper and maybe for 2, but it's pretty clear that you will not do it for all of these, and because it's just the costs are just too high, and you're not willing to have all these follow-up costs just to read 1 article maybe. So there's really a big disconnect again between the users, and a lot of revenue for the publishers is lost because people have the willingness to pay for content, but they can't really do it at the moment in an easy way. So one alternative to subscription models are micropayments. And they have been done in the past. But using traditional payment rails, you have payment fees for each individual transaction of about 10 to 30 cents, plus a percentage on top of that. So essentially, this makes paying 1 cent or even 10 cents on the internet impossible in sort of an open loop system. Because yeah, the payment fees are eating up everything. And if you want to sell, let's say, 10 seconds of video, or like a minute of video, or like 1 download of a PDF file for 50 cents, you can't really do it at the moment. But we believe there's a significant market for exactly that niche to cater for the willingness of people to pay, and also generate an income that's additional to advertising and subscriptions for the publishers. So we don't really want to kill subscriptions. We really want to complement it for people that are willing to pay a little bit, but not go into the long-term engagement with a publisher. So our solution, we call it frictionless nanopayments. Essentially, it's a blockchain-based wallet which allows you to pay for content around the web for just the content you're interested in. And we did this in a very easy-to-do way. So the frictionless element is here. You don't really have to think about it. We emulated the properties of pocket change. So very easy to spend. The security mechanisms around it are like relatively, let's say, lean, and not so much protecting as if you suddenly want to pay 1,000 euros. So we think micropayments need different sort of usability paradigms. So that's where the user experience comes in and plays a very big part in making micropayments successful. So you're essentially doing micropayments when you switch on the light, right? So you have per minute sort of a metered access, but it's all kind of masked from you. If you switch off the light, that's the only interface you have for doing micropayments. Same with mobile phone, prepaid plans. You make a call, and automatically in the background, it's being billed. So we built a similar thing for the web, and that's what it looks like. We have a website with buttons which can say pay on it, but they also can say read more. And then essentially, when you click on these buttons, you make individual payments. And the content is revealed in place, and you have a little balance here at the bottom. Can you see that? That shows you your remaining sort of SatoshiPay tokens, which are, of course, blockchain-based. And yeah, there's no sign up to this system. There's no download of any additional extension or software, and also there's no additional click. meaning so just one click to reveal the content, and that does the payment at the same time. And the software comes with the website as a website widget written in JavaScript. So we have a fully functional Stellar wallet that used to be a Bitcoin wallet in JavaScript, and that kind of comes comes without you doing anything and without you signing up. We generate a private key for you on the fly, and the only onboarding is a top-up either with credit card or PayPal, or currently Stellar is supported as a crypto top-up mechanism natively. So that's the only onboarding you need. And yeah, we're combining the access to content and the payment in one step. So it's just like that, and you come to a website and you see this button. The first interaction, or the first interaction you do with this website could be a payment, and it's done within a few milliseconds, and you can read the content. So that's really the frictionless that we expect from a system like this. Yeah, so it works across websites, of course. So you top up one website, or you get some free credit at some website, and then you move on to other websites, and you can just continue spending there. We support all internet types, internet file types, including PDFs, ebooks, and videos, and so on and so forth. This is our publisher dashboard, and yeah, that kind of gives you some information about the payments being made. And we have a WordPress plugin as well. So if you use WordPress, you can get started within 5 minutes. You install the plugin, you sign up, and then you can get started to sell content. You just press a button, insert paid element, and that's all you need to do. And I need to hurry up a little bit, I think. And Aaron stands there, and I think that's what he's trying to tell me.
Clock there?
Oh, the clock. I didn't notice the clock. 1 second.
Okay, no rush.
Okay, okay. We have an API, of course.
We don't have time for questions, you know?
Sure. Let me just go through this. So in the future, we will use the content token based on the euro token, as I said. And we'll introduce website-to-user payments. And also, we will build SatoshiPay more into a B2B micropayment infrastructure. What do I mean by that? We've already built the platform API, which is speaking to distributed ledgers. We had it connected to Bitcoin. We experimented with IOTA a little bit. And then we... someone got the hint. And then we chose Stellar as our default ledger. And the first use case we built on top of that is the digital content payments, which you just saw. And other verticals will be able, for publishers and developers will be able to use our APIs to implement their own sort of verticals in the IoT space, within games and apps through our SDKs, and also metered data services. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Wonderful. So, I already see a hand there. Theo, please. You get a mic.
Hi, thanks. So if I'm a content provider and I get paid in Stellar SatoshiPay tokens or whatever it's called, how do I cash them out, and how do I buy them if I'm someone that wants to consume content? What happened to payment channels and Lightning and all that stuff? 2 questions, sorry.
Yeah, so I don't really know where you are. So
I'm right here.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
What's up?
Yeah, so first question, payment channels and Lightning. It wasn't ready when we needed it to be. So at some point, we were at 40 euros transaction fees on the Bitcoin network, and we had a business to deploy. We had publishers waiting for our technology, and we could not subsidize this anymore. This would have cost us thousands and thousands of euros to subsidize this, so we had to exchange it quickly. It was a hard decision to make, but Stellar was there. It was working in production for already 3-4 years, or let's say 3 years, and it had all the features we needed from a ledger just for a micropayment system. That's where we switched to Stellar, and also the support that we got from them. And in terms of how you cash them out, so currently you are receiving lumens. You're receiving lumens to like a wallet that you control, and you can then send them to an exchange, and then exchange them to euros, and then cash them out. You can also maybe directly give it, well, maybe no, you shouldn't do this, like kind of a deposit address, but you shouldn't do that actually. This is a step in between. We will also offer a full solution where we maybe do the exchange through someone like Tempo or some other kind of liquidity providers in the euro space, and pay out to bank accounts directly and do the transfer on the fly. So as a publisher, you will then receive euros. Especially when we switch to the euro token, you have an income of 100 euros and you will get paid out 90 euros after our fee. And that's kind of how that works. And as a consumer, when you top up, you don't need to know anything about crypto. You get out your credit card or you get out your PayPal account, and then you just top up. And in the background, we issue currently lumens for that amount that you top up as a kind of credit card method, or later on the equivalent amount in euro tokens. And so blockchain will be completely masked to the end user, or also to the publisher once we are fully there with our feature set.
Alex is next. Microphone in the middle, please.
Hi. I have a question about the content.
Oh,
I'll just go.
all right. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
I have a question about the content access.
Yeah.
It's a nice interface that you were showing. You know, it grays out the content. But I was wondering how you actually control the access to that content. Is it encrypted and delivered to the browser, or is it not yet delivered to the browser until you've made the payment? If so, where's it delivered from?
Yeah, so it's the second, so it's not yet delivered to the browser. We also looked into the encryption, but especially for images and videos, that's just causing too much memory hogs, too big memory hogs in the browser, so we decided to do that. And also we wanted to make it available to cast, for example, to a Chromecast or any other casting devices. And so that's why we use let's say, a certificate that we attach to the URL, and you just send that to any device that you want to cast from, for example, or to your browser. And then this certificate is kind of a valid payment certificate that we issue and sign on our server once you have paid, and it's valid for about 4 hours at the moment, and you can then consume the content within these 4 hours. Based on sort of a JWT-like sign-in mechanism. Yeah. So there's a small DRM built in. Yeah.
Okay. Alex.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, Alex here. I like your model. I like your solution, but I'm wondering what's your marketing strategy? How are you going to onboard publishers?
I can see
how are you going to onboard publishers and consumers and penetrate the market? I mean, do you have partnerships? Do you have a strategy? If you can go into that a little bit more, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so we have several streams. We have the traditional sort of connections to publishers, and we hired some people that are veterans in the industry that know a lot of publishers that are looking into digitization of their businesses. And those people are kind of classical, kind of reaching out, showing our product to them, and sort of a B2B sales approach there, especially in the UK. We're quite strong with this, Germany as well. That's one route that's quite successful, and it has converted some of our clients. Also, we have a publisher as our investor, and that network helps us greatly. And also, we have a huge grant from the Stellar Foundation of about 50 million lumens, which is worth around 15 million euros at the moment, which we can give out as free credit to our users. That's huge, obviously. When we made that deal, sort of a fun fact, it was worth about €1 million, and then Stellar went crazy, and then it was good for us. I don't think they give these kind of grants out anymore, in this size anyway. So that helps a lot because essentially that money will go to publishers, right? So these free credits from the Stellar Foundation go to publishers, so they have an incentive to create content for these giveaway credits. So that's one mechanism. Also, our long-tail strategy is through our WordPress plugin, the self-sign-up, and you can then kind of apply for different tier levels as you make your first income.
Can you share, just as a follow-up, can you share your timeline, your roadmap and milestones that you're targeting right now?
Yeah, so we went online with one of our first sort of mainstream publishers last week, the Register in the UK. So they are starting to sell a travel guide using our technology. But this opens up conversations with many other publishers in the UK and also abroad. So this year and the rest of this year, we will roll out more publishers, like mainly news publishers and digital publishers.
One more question. Yeah, please.
Thanks, Meinhard. Also, awesome presentation. I had a doubt that is like if it would work now, soon, in a decentralized web content service, either at the level of the naming service and an infrastructure, storage, and everything. Could it be applied not only to the web like we are thinking about the web today, but also be prepared, you have in the roadmap to be prepared to give to this kind of services your service?
Yeah, so I mean, our design or architecture is currently targeted at relatively centralized solutions. We see that because we see this as a transitional phase. I mean, these centralized services are dominating the web as it is at the moment. They are distributing content, and they need to integrate with us. So they can either do this with our API or using our plugins that we have already. So that's the current strategy, and as there is more market demand for like really sizable publications, or even if it's like a decentralized network for distributing content that needs some payment mechanism that's not already built in using their existing blockchain, we will do that. But we see the biggest demand in this kind of software as a service, full service solution for existing big publishers.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for the great questions.